Determinants of verbal learning. In the previous video, we have learned what is verbal learning. In this video, we will be learning the determinants or the factors that affect the verbal learning process. Before going to the details, please remember to subscribe this channel. Please do watch other videos in this channel and share it with students and with those who love learning psychology. Thank you. So, what are the factors that affect verbal learning? There are 6 major factors. They are meaningfulness, frequency, recency, similarity, imagery and concreteness, and motivation. Each of these we will see in detail. First one is meaningfulness. The more meaningful if the item is, the more readily and easily it is learned. The learning involves the functional internalization of the verbal material presented to the learners. For example, in the serial learning list, if the meaningfulness of the item increases, that is, if the words presented in the list are more meaningful, then it requires lesser trials to learn. That is, if the words are meaningful, then you need to have only lesser or fewer trials and you will learn the items. In free recall, it was found that the meaningfulness is positively related to the amount recalled. That is, the studies have shown that if the words are meaningful, then it is easily recalled. And in paired associate learning, it was found that the pairs with an average meaningfulness are learned more rapidly than those with lower meaningful items. It was observed that the higher meaningfulness, the more rapid is the learning. In short, meaningful material is recalled much more easily than the nonsense material. Then, frequency. Learning and retention is also influenced by the frequency with which particular words are encountered. That is the number of times the words we have seen, that the frequency of the word that affect the learning process. In studies, it was found that the person recalled items better which they frequently heard or saw. Another study shows that the frequency with which words have been experienced, it determines their availability as responses in new connections. So in paired associate, it was learned that the frequency of the word determines the availability as response. The third is recency. The recency effect is the tendency to remember the most recently presented information best. For example, if you are trying to memorize a list of items, the recency effect means you are more likely to recall the items from the list that you studied last. Consider a serial list. You are trying to recall items from your shopping list. The list you accidentally left at home and you are trying to recall the items in that list. You are easily able to remember the last few items you wrote down, but you can't seem to recall any of the items in the middle of your list. This is due to the recency effect. Another aspect of the recency is If the time interval between the presentation and the testing is increased, that is, you have seen a list and the memory is tested after a long time, then there will be a decline in the recall. Less the time interval, then better the recall will be. For example, you might have little trouble remembering what you had for breakfast this morning. Recalling what you ate 2 weeks ago would be much more difficult. Sometimes maybe it is impossible also. So that is recency. The things you have seen or learned recently will be recalled easily. Then comes similarity. Similarity among all stimulus terms was deleterious to learning, while similarity among response terms had no effect on learning. There is a close relationship between the similarity and the generalization. During the course of learning, when the stimulus is attached to a response and thereby learned in that manner, we are at the same time develop a tendency to make the same response. Not to the same stimuli, but to similar stimuli. The experiment showed that similarity among all stimulus terms was deleterious. That means they are having a bad effect in learning, while similarity among the response terms, it had no effect on learning. That is, in a paired associate learning, if the stimulus items are similar to each other, the learning task gets difficult. Why? Because of the interpair generalization. Then the similarity between the stimulus and the response term, it will make it difficult, the association between them. So, the similarity will make it difficult to learn things. Imagery and concreteness. The role of imagery in learning is important. When one learns verbal material, one may do so by forming images of it. That is, when you hear a word, chances are there, you will create images in your mind. The image arousing capacity of the verbal material is important. Concrete words are those words which generate images easily. For example, glittering diamond. Hearing the word, image of a glittering diamond is created in your mind. Abstract words, on the other hand, do not easily or not at all generate images. Thus, it is easier to learn words which are concrete. Various studies highlighted the role of concrete stimuli in facilitating verbal learning. Then comes motivation. Motivation plays a significantly important role in verbal learning. Studies have shown that motivation influences the amount of learning. For example, a learner who needs the knowledge of mathematics in order not to be cheated when purchasing goods from the store may demonstrate a high level of motivation in learning mathematics. Likewise, a learner who learns the English language because he or she needs English skill to communicate in his social life. So these two are examples of motivation. When you are motivated in some way, then it encourages the learning factor. Now let's have a quick recap on what we have learned. We have learned the determinants or the factors that affect the verbal learning. What are the factors? The meaningfulness of the word that have used. Then the frequency or number of times the word appear. Then recency, how recently you have learned that word. Then similarity. The similar words make it difficult for us to learn. Then imagery and concreteness. Concrete word help us to make images of that word. Then motivation. How motivated you are. It affects your learning process. Hope you like this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you and keep smiling.